So I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين. أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So this is the 18th part of our series titled The Art of Supplication, which is an ongoing exploration into the sacred relationship between the supplicant, the supplication, and the divine. The insights within this series are cumulative, and the nature of our discussion requires that each part build upon the foundations laid in the ones that came before. Therefore, to prevent any misunderstanding and to fully benefit from the depth of this subject, it is essential that everyone engage with the previous parts in order before proceeding with this one. Nevertheless, we will have a recap of the previous part. If I can get a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
اللهم صل
محمد.
على محمد وآل محمد.
So in our last session, we journeyed through the sacred windows of place to the heartland of Iraq, exploring a triangle of trial, testimony, and trust that has forged the very resolve of our faith. Our path began in Kufa, which we call the crucible of the covenant. There, we confronted the painful lessons of hesitation and the vast chasm between passive admiration and active allegiance or bay'ah that is demanded by the Imam of the time and by God. Kufa stands as an eternal warning against a faith of words without deeds. From Kufa's difficult question, we travel to its definitive and bloody answer, Karbala, the criterion of truth. On that preordained sanctuary, we learnt the grammar of wilayah, written in the sacrifice of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him. Karbala taught us that true love for the oppressed, or salam, is inseparable from a clear and courageous disavowal of the oppressor, or bara'ah. Our journey through this triangle concluded in Najaf, a citadel, the citadel of preservation, around the luminous gate of all prophetic knowledge, Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him. We found the fortress of guardianship. Here, the passion of Karbala is protected and transmitted across generations through the disciplined scholarship of the Hausa and the solemn covenant of the Marja'iyah. Together, these three sanctuaries provided a profound syllabus in resolve, teaching us the price of the pledge, the power of the proof, and the structure of preservation. But the school of al-Bayt does not only forge the believer's intellect and steel their resolve, it also softens, shapes, and heals the believer's heart. Having understood the grammar of loyalty, where do we learn the poetry of mercy? Tonight, our journey continues to the sacred sanctuaries of Iran. In his most beautiful name, we continue. Please give me a salawat and we move to the role of place, part 3, the sanctuary, the saint, and the sacrifice.
اللهم صل على محمد
وآل
وآل
محمد.
محمد.
So the first point is Mashhad, the sanctuary of mercy or Rahmah. Having journeyed through the syllabus of resolve in Iraq, our path now continues to the sacred sanctuaries of Iran, where the heart is healed, softened, and shaped. We begin in Mashhad, a name that means the place of martyrdom. Yet paradoxically, it has become one of the world's greatest sanctuaries of life-giving mercy or Rahmah. Here rests the 8th Imam, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha, peace and blessings be upon him, whose titles, history, and the very land upon which he rests reveal the profound nature of his compassion and the ultimate verdict of history. So we now look at the ocean of mercy and the verdict of history. The imamate of Imam al-Ridha, which we've discussed in our Wednesday sessions, was a profound manifestation of God's all-encompassing mercy, a quality that Quran establishes as a universal principle. In Quran, in Surah Al-A'raf, the chapter of the heights, 7th chapter of the Quran, verse 156, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and my mercy encompasses all things. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, was sent as the embodiment of this attribute, as a mercy to the universe. And the Imams are the inheritors of this prophetic mercy, this prophetic Rahmah. This divine mercy is reflected in the extraordinary promises attached to the Imam's Ziyarah, a covenant of mercy that offers refuge on the day when no other refuge can be found. The history of the shrine itself is a powerful lesson in this dynamic. The land was originally a garden estate belonging to the governor of Tus, where the powerful Abbasid Khalif Harun al-Abbasi, Harun al-Rashid, the persecutor of the Imam's father and the believers, the persecutor of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim, was buried after his death. Harun al-Abbasi was buried in this place after his death. Years later, Harun's son al-Ma'mun, in a final act of political theater, right after martyring Imam al-Ridha with poison, buried the Imam in that very same garden next to his own father. Now, Ma'mun's intention was likely to subsume the Imam's legacy under the shadow of Abbasid power. History, however, delivered an entirely different verdict. Today, the magnificent golden dome of Imam al-Ridha stands as a global center of pilgrimage, drawing tens of millions of hearts, while the tomb of the mighty Khalif Harun Abbasi lies in an unmarked corner beneath it, almost entirely forgotten. The place is not known as the tomb of the Khalif, but as the shrine of his victim. Let's now look at Gharib al-Ghuraba and Zamin-e-Ahoo, the titles of tenderness. Two titles of the Imam, most beloved to his followers, reveal the very essence of his compassionate guardianship. The first one is Gharib al-Ghuraba, the refuge of every estranged soul. The title Gharib al-Ghuraba is often translated literally as the stranger of strangers, but its meaning is a deep ocean, reflecting the Imam's lived reality and his spiritual station. Firstly, it speaks to his profound historical estrangement. He was forcibly exiled from his home in Medina, politically isolated in a corrupt court, and ultimately martyred and buried far from his kin. The standard visitation prayer, or Ziyarah for the Imam, has the pilgrim bear witness to this painful reality, addressing him directly, saying, "Peace be upon you, O the Imam who was estranged. I bear witness that you established the prayer, gave the zakat or charity or poordu, commanded the good and forbade the evil, and worshipped God with sincerity until certainty came to you." This is, of course, the references in the write-up, like always, but this is from the Ziyarah of Imam al-Ridha. Second, the title reflects a deep spiritual reality. The Imam, as the living embodiment of pure Islam in his time, the Imam was the ultimate manifestation of the state described by his great ancestor, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, who said, "Indeed, Islam began as a stranger, al-Gharib, and will return as a stranger, al-Gharib, as it began. So blessed are the strangers, al-Ghuraba." And of course, the reference for this is in the write-up. Imam Khamenei, may God protect him, who was born and raised in Mashhad, explains that this strangeness was not just about being far from home, but about being a stranger to the falsehood and corruption of the Khalif's court. He was a stranger because of his purity, his knowledge, and his unwavering divine connection in an environment of moral decay. Imam Khamenei has said, the meaning of Imam al-Ridha's estrangement, or Ghurbat, is not just that he was far from Medina. The primary estrangement was spiritual, an estrangement caused by the absence of those who could comprehend the station and value of his divine knowledge. And again, the reference for this speech is in the write-up. Finally, and most paradoxically, it is because he endured the pinnacle of all forms of estrangement that he became the ultimate providential refuge for every estranged soul. The lonely find a friend in him. The exiles find a homeland in his sanctuary. And all who feel like strangers in this material world, or dunya, find in him a compassionate guide who understands their pain, who can empathize with them. His title, therefore, is not a statement of pity, but rather a declaration of his function as a universal sanctuary. Let's now look at the second title, which is Zamin-e-Ahoo, the guarantor of the vulnerable. This protective compassion is beautifully captured in the story of Zamin-e-Ahoo, which in Arabic is Dhamin al-Ahu. It means the protector of the deer or the gazelle. Sheikh al-Saduq provides the core of this widely transmitted event as follows. And again, the reference is in the write-up, but I will narrate. It is narrated that Imam al-Ridha, peace and blessings be upon him, saw a hunter who had captured a doe. The doe looked at the Imam and spoke to him in a language he could understand. He said to the hunter, "Release her so that she may go and nurse her fawns, and then she will return to you." The hunter said, "I will not do it." The Imam replied, "I will be her guarantor. If she does not return, then you may pass your judgment upon me." The hunter released her, and the doe went, nursed her young, and returned. When the hunter saw her, he was astonished and set her free in honor of the Imam. This is a very widely transmitted narration. Its essence is primarily attributed to Sheikh Saduq, but again, the references are in the write-up. But this is more than a story. It is a theological principle. The great contemporary scholar, jurist, Gnostic, and philosopher, Ayatollah Jawadi Amali, may God protect him, explains its deeper meaning, saying, "The Imam's guarantee of the deer is not merely a historical incident. It is a manifestation of his all-encompassing mercy, which is itself a reflection of God's vast mercy. He is a refuge for every weak being and a sanctuary for every fearful soul." Just as Imam al-Ridha stood as a guarantor for a vulnerable deer, his wilaya serves as a guarantee and sanctuary for all who seek his refuge. Let's now look at the living institution from custodianship to revolution. The Rahmah of Imam al-Ridha is not confined to a spiritual feeling or a future promise. It is a living, breathing, and active force in the world today. This is manifested through the institution of Astane-e-Quds, the massive charitable and religious endowment that administers his shrine. For centuries, this foundation has used the wealth donated in the Imam's name to serve the people, building hospitals, universities, libraries, and providing for the poor. The shrine is also the heart of the Hawza, Islamic Seminary of Mashhad, one of the three great pillars of Shia scholarship alongside Najaf and Qom. This mission of service was embodied by one of its most notable recent custodians, the martyred president of Iran, Sayyid Ibrahim Raisi, may God bless his pure soul. Before his presidency, during his tenure as the head of Astane-e-Quds, he recentered its mission on its foundational purpose, which is serving the downtrodden or the mustadafin. He famously stated, "Service to the pilgrims and residents, especially the needy, is the central axis of the activities of Astane-e-Quds. This threshold must be the sanctuary for the deprived." And again, the references for this speech are in the write-up. This institutional mercy took on a decisive role following the victory of the Islamic Revolution. When the newly formed Islamic Republic was struggling for survival, especially during the 8-year imposed war, which was not just against Saddam, it was against the entire world, East and West. The immense resources of Astane-e-Quds were mobilized to support this revolution, to support this country. This was not a political decision, rather it was a theological decision. It was a manifestation of the Imam's ongoing wilaya and support for his followers. As Imam Khamenei, who, as we said, was born and raised in Mashhad, has affirmed, the shrine is not just a place of worship, but it is a bastion of the revolution. He says, Astane-e-Quds during the period of the revolution, the Sacred Defense, which is the name of the 8-year war, was one of the most important bases of spiritual and material support. This spirit of service and jihad is from the blessings of this luminous shrine and its inhabitant. And this, the reference to the speech can be found in the write-up. This teaches us a profound lesson. The Imam, though physically absent, is never passive. His mercy and guardianship continue to flow through the institutions built in his name, providing tangible support and protection for those who uphold the banner of his cause. Let's now look at some calls to clarify lessons from the Guarantor. The mercy of Imam al-Ridha is not something we merely visit. It is something we are called to embody. The adab or etiquette of his ziyarah and the history of his shrine are training to this very embodiment. So firstly, let's look at clarify your mercy or clarify our mercy. We should become guarantors for all of the vulnerable. The story of the Zamin-e-Ahoo is a profound lesson in both the scope and nature of Islamic compassion. It teaches that Radawi mercy is not reserved for believers alone, but extends to all vulnerable beings, even an animal. More importantly, it teaches that this mercy is not a passive feeling, but rather it is an active guardianship. The Imam, peace and blessings be upon him, did not just feel sorry for the deer. He put himself on the line and became its guarantor or Zamin. This is our model. In a world that systematically dehumanizes the vulnerable, our duty is to become guarantors for those who have no protector, for the children and the oppressed in Gaza, for the unborn child whose sacred life is dismissed as an inconvenience, and for our elders who are encouraged to accept euthanasia or assisted suicide because a failed system deems their care to be a burden. When the world encourages killing, we must be those who stand firm and say no. We choose life over death and dignity over humiliation. We choose instead to use both wings of our loyalty to soar towards God, towards truth, and towards true perfection. Secondly, let's clarify the verdict of history, the enduring light versus the vanished tyrant. The physical reality of the shrine, the glorious dome of the Imam, overshadowing the forgotten grave of the Khalif, is a powerful clarification. Worldly power is fleeting, while the light of divine guardianship is eternal. This teaches us to align ourselves with the enduring axis of truth, not with the transient powers of our time. It is a call to place our trust in the promises of God, which are manifest in his awliya, rather than in the promises of arrogant and fleeting empires, no matter how wonderful they might appear. And thirdly, we should clarify our heritage, from artifacts to action. The magnificent museums of the shrine are not merely a collection of old objects. They are a clarification of our identity. They preserve the material culture of our faith as a trust. Our duty is not just to admire these artifacts, but to become living artifacts of our faith. To take part in the mission of the Hawza is to embark on a journey towards God and the al-Bayt. This path is defined by the pursuit of knowledge, the embodiment of Islamic ethics and Islamic personality, and the solemn duty to preserve the intellectual and spiritual heritage of al-Bayt, a legacy we uphold in our own lives and pass on to our children. And finally, we need to clarify our own solitude, embracing the blessing of estrangement. Many sincere believers feel like strangers or Ghuraba in their own communities when they witness corruption and hypocrisy. This feeling of estrangement is not a sign of weakness, but a sign that the believer's heart is still alive to the truth. You are sharing in a small way the very spiritual state of Imam al-Ridha. And you are the living, or we are the living reality of the hadith, which reads, and I quoted it earlier, "Indeed, Islam began as a stranger, and it will return as a stranger as it had begun. So blessed are the strangers." This ghurbat, or loneliness, is a blessing. It is a badge of honor. It is proof that you have not accepted defeat, nor allowed your heart to become numb to falsehood. And know that for every soul who feels this sacred loneliness, the divinely appointed refuge and the gate to God's ultimate solace is the master of strangers himself, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha. And above all of this, the loneliness that is felt by Imam al-Hujjah, may our souls be his ransom, is something that we can try and share a tiny piece in, that it inspire us to work even harder to hasten his return. Please give me a salawat and we move to Qom, the garden of intercession and loyalty.
اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على
محمد
محمد وآل محمد
محمد
وعجل
وعجل فرجهم.
From the ocean of the Imam's mercy in Mashhad, our journey now takes us to the garden of his beloved sister, the holy city of Qom. If Mashhad is a testament to the Imam's compassionate embrace, Qom is a testament to the power of a single woman's unwavering loyalty to her Imam. Here, the grave of Sayyedah Fatimah al-Masuma, may God shower his blessings upon her, did not mark an end. It planted a seed that grew into one of the world's most influential fortresses of knowledge, proving that in the school of al-Bayt, feminine sanctity can shape civilizations. Let's now look at the idea of karimata al-Bayt and the power of intercession. And we've studied quite a bit about Sayyedah Fatimah Masuma in our Wednesday sessions. I would invite people to take a look at those. Sayyedah Fatimah Masuma is known by the unique and revered title of Karimah al-Bayt, the noble and generous lady of the household of the Prophet. This title signifies her immense spiritual station and her role as a conduit of divine generosity. Her Ziyarah is not just a visit, but an entry into a covenant of intercession or Shafa'ah. Her brother Imam al-Ridha, peace and blessings be upon him, established her station with his famous declaration: "Whoever visits Fatimah Masuma in Qom is like one who has visited me." And again, the references are all in the write-up. The theology of intercession is central to understanding Qom. It is not a circumvention of divine justice, but a divinely appointed means of drawing closer to God's mercy. The Quran affirms that no intercession is possible except by his leave, highlighting that it is a station granted by God himself. In Quran, Surah al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, second chapter of the Quran, verse 255, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Who is it that can intercede with him except by his permission?" The al-Bayt are the foremost of those granted this permission. The great scholar and martyr, Ayatollah Murtada Mutahhari, peace and blessings be upon his pure soul, masterfully clarified this very point. He explained that intercession is a powerful educational and spiritual tool designed to prevent despair and inspire reform. He wrote, "The philosophy of intercession or Shafa'ah is one of training or tarbiyah and reform, not an encouragement to sin. Intercession is a preventative factor against despairing of God's mercy. It keeps the sinner in a state between fear or khawf and hope or raja, and makes them hopeful of their own reform." Again, the reference for this is in the write-up. Therefore, visiting Sayyedah Fatimah Masuma with this understanding transforms the Ziyarah from a plea for her personal favors into a renewal of one's own loyalty to the Imamah and to the God she represents. We seek her intercession not as an escape from our duties, but as a source of divine help and empowerment in order to fulfill them. Let's now look at the idea of the prophesied seminary from Najaf to Qom. So, for over 1,000 years, the Hawza of Najaf was the undisputed heart of Shia scholarship. However, the Imams of the al-Bayt prophesied that another city would one day carry this sacred trust. In a stunning and widely narrated hadith or narration, Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq foretold the central role of Qom in the era of the occultation. He said, "A time will come when the city of Qom and its people will be a proof or a hujjah over all of creation. Then knowledge will overflow from it to all other lands in the east and the west, and thus the proof of God will be complete over his creation." And again, the references are in the write-up. In another more specific narration concerning the transfer of knowledge from the city of Imam Ali, which is Najaf, Kufa, Imam Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, is reported to have also said, "Kufa will one day be emptied of the believers, and knowledge will withdraw from it as a snake withdraws into its hole. Then knowledge will appear in a land called Qom, and it will become a mine of knowledge and virtue. And again, the reference is all in the write-up. One of the great pillars of the modern Qom seminary, the late philosopher and jurist, Ayatollah Muhammad Taqi Misbah Yazdi, may God rest his pure soul, saw this hadith as a key to understanding the spiritual reality behind the Islamic revolution. He explained that the historical circumstances that weakened Najaf and strengthened Qom were not a mere accident, but the unfolding of this divinely ordained plan. He says, these narrations show that the academic center of Shiism, by divine decree, was destined to transfer from Najaf to Qom in order to prepare the ground for a global transformation. The Islamic Revolution of Iran was the realization of these very promises of the infallibles, which erupted from the heart of the seminary in Qom. And again, the references are in the write-up. This divine prophecy was fulfilled in the 20th century. Due to the intense and brutal persecution of scholars in Iraq under the Ba'athist regime in the 1970s, the Hawza of Najaf was essentially, unfortunately, decimated. Many of its greatest scholars were imprisoned, martyrs, or forced into exile. It was during this dark period that the Hawza of Qom, nurtured for decades, centuries even, by great scholars, began to absorb this legacy. The victory of the Islamic Revolution in 1979, led by a son of the Qom seminary, Imam Khomeini, may God rest his pure soul, provided the stability and support for Qom to flourish and become the primary global center for Shi'i scholarship, fulfilling the words of Imam Sadiq. This was not a human rivalry, but the unfolding of a divine plan. Now, over here, it's crucial to clarify that this prophetic fulfillment does not mean the Hawza of Najaf has become defunct or irrelevant. Najaf, with its 1,000-year legacy and the blessed presence of the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, remains a deep and revered ocean of sacred knowledge. However, the historical circumstances of the last century meant that the primary global epicenter of scholarship, of revolutionary thought, and the training of the new generation of ulama did indeed shift to Qom. Ultimately, Najaf, Qom, and Mashhad are not rivals. They are the three great pillars that support the entire intellectual and spiritual edifice of the Shi'i world, each a center of learning par excellence. Let's now look at some points on clarification, calls to clarify, lessons from the Karimah of al-Bayt. The legacy of Sayyedah Fatimah Masuma and the city founded upon her grave offers us profound lessons for our time. So firstly, clarify the power of feminine sanctity. The Hawza of Qom is a global epicenter of traditionally male-dominated religious scholarship. It's founded upon the grave of a woman. This itself is a powerful clarification. It teaches us that in Islam, spiritual authority and the power to shape civilizations are not restricted by gender. In fact, there are some excellent schools for the sisters in Qom. Sayyedah Fatimah Masuma's life is a testament to the station of women in the school of al-Bayt. Our duty is to honor this legacy by actively supporting and creating spaces for women's scholarship and leadership within our communities, recognizing them as essential heirs to the knowledge of the Prophet's household. Now let's look at clarifying the meaning of intercession, a call to loyalty. To seek Shafa'ah or intercession of Sayyedah Fatimah Masuma is not to seek an escape from our responsibilities. It is an act of tawassul, approaching God through his chosen friends. That is meant to empower us. Her intercession is for those who are loyal to her brother and to Islam, but her brother the Imam, and to the line of Imamah, and to God and the one who sent the A'imma, the Imams. Therefore, to truly ask for her help is to simultaneously pledge to live a life of wilayah, of truth, of haqq, and of principled loyalty to the Imam of our time. May our souls be his ransom, and may God hasten his return. It is a prayer for strength to return to the path, not a license to leave or neglect it. Finally, let's clarify our own communities, building mini Qoms. Just as Qom became a school of loyalty and a fortress of clear doctrine, our local communities are called to become mini Qoms. This means creating spaces in our centers, in our homes, in our online gatherings that are dedicated to teaching and preserving clean doctrine, aqidah, in an age of confusion. It means fostering a strong, unapologetic Shi'i identity rooted in the Quran and the al-Bayt. It is to build small fortresses of principled resistance against the waves of cultural and political decay, ensuring that our communities are sources of light, not echoes of the darkness. Please give me a salawat and we move to the graveyard of the martyrs, the pedagogy of death.
اللهم صل على محمد
وآل
وآل محمد وآل.
So from the sanctuaries of mercy and loyalty in Mashhad and Qom, our journey now arrives at its most sobering and clarifying destination, the sacred gardens of the martyrs. From the vast ancient necropolis of Wadi al-Salam in Najaf to the revolutionary rows of Behesht-e in Tehran, from the earth surrounding the Master of the Martyrs in Karbala to the humble local seminaries that hold our own community's heroes, we stand on ground where the Quran's most profound promise has been made manifest. These are not places of endings, but classrooms of eternity, where the earth itself teaches us the true meaning of life by bearing witness to those who gave their lives for the truth. Now let's look at the Quranic promise, a pedagogy of life and witness. The foundation for understanding the station of the martyrs is a direct and powerful command from God to correct our entire perception of death and sacrifice. The Quran orders a fundamental shift in our reality. In Quran, Surah Al-Imran, the chapter of the family of Imran, third chapter of the Quran, verse 169, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And never think of those who have been killed in the cause of God as dead. Rather, they are alive with their Lord, receiving provision." While this verse refers to the highest station of those killed in battle, the school of al-Bayt broadens our understanding of martyrdom. The Arabic word for martyr, Shaheed, comes from the same root as Shaheed, which means witness. Therefore, a martyr is, above all, a witness, one whose entire life, and not just their death, bears testimony to the truth of God in the face of falsehood. The great martyr and thinker, Ayatollah Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, may God rest his pure soul, explained this profound connection, saying, "The martyr, Shaheed, is the one who writes with his blood his testimony, Shahada, to the truth of the message, so that his blood becomes a proof or a hujjah for generations. But the life that precedes the martyrdom is also a testimony." And again, the references are on the write-up. This profound understanding that a life lived as a witness is in itself a form of shahada is rooted directly in the teachings of the Prophet and his family. The traditions teach that the gates of martyrdom are open to every sincere believer, and that even one's sincere intention or niyyah can elevate them to this station. The Prophet himself, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, gave this incredible promise. Whoever sincerely asks God for martyrdom, God will raise him to the stations of the martyrs, even if he dies on his bed. And the reference is, of course, in the write-up. This same spirit is beautifully articulated in the magnificent supplication for the people of the frontiers, Dua al-Thughur, from Sahifa Sajjadiyya. In it, Imam Zain al-Abidin, peace and blessings be upon him, prays that God grant the full reward of the frontline fighter to those who support the struggle from afar. It reads, "And if the situation of Islam and the oppressed should worry or concern someone, a Muslim, and the alliance of the enemies of God against Islam and the oppressed depresses him, such that he has the intent to go to war or is about to enter the struggle, but frailty keeps him seated, or poverty keeps him waiting, or an unforeseen mishap delays him, or an obstruction prevents him from his wish or desire, be sure, O Lord, to write his name amongst the righteous worshippers, and to make incumbent for him the reward of the strugglers, the mujahideen, and place him firmly in the ranks of the shuhada, of the martyrs, and the salihin, the righteous. And this is, of course, from Du'a al-Thur, and the references are in the write-up. Visiting the graves, therefore, is not an act reserved for battlefield martyrs, but a recommended practice, a sunnah, for connecting with all believers who have passed on. It is a time to pray for the deceased, to ask God for his mercy upon them and upon their families, and to reflect on our own end, praying for what we call aqibat bi-khair, a good conclusion to our lives. For as the Quran reminds us, this is again Surah Al-A'raf, the chapter of the heights, 7th chapter of the Quran, verse 128, Allah says, and the best outcome is for the God-wary. That said, the one who is killed for God's cause holds a special station, as they provide the ultimate lesson in correcting our fear calculus. In a world that teaches us to fear death above all else, the martyr proves that dishonor, cowardice, and complicity with injustice are fates that are far worse. The great martyr of the Islamic resistance in Lebanon, Sheikh Harb, may God rest his pure soul, whose blood consecrated the struggle, famously declared this new calculus in one of his sermons, saying, "The martyrs are our leaders. They are the ones who draw for us the path to the future with their blood." And the reference for this is in the write-up. Let's now look at the school of certainty and the story of Maytham Tammar. This profound reorientation towards the eternal was perfectly embodied by one of the greatest companions of Imam Ali, Maytham Tammar. Maytham, who was a humble date seller, was given knowledge by the Imam of future events, including the precise details of his own martyrdom. The great historian Sheikh Mufid narrates this incredible story, and the reference, of course, is in the write-up. But I will narrate from Sheikh Mufid. He says, Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, told Maytham, "O Maytham, after my death you will be seized, and you will be crucified upon the wood of this palm tree." After that, Maytham would frequently visit that tree, pray beneath it, and address it, saying, "O blessed palm tree, for you I was created, and for me you were nourished." Years later, when he was brought before Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, and he saw the tree, he smiled and said, "By God, this is the very palm tree of which my master informed me." The lesson of Maytham is the lesson of absolute certainty, or yaqeen. His knowledge of the afterlife was so complete that he did not fear for his own murder. He nurtured the very instrument of his martyrdom as one would nurture a garden. His life is the perfect commentary on the final verses of Surah Al-Asr, which declare that all of humanity is in a state of loss, except, and this is Surah Al-Asr, the chapter of the passage of time, 103rd chapter of the Quran, this is verse number 3, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Except for those who have believed and do righteous deeds and advise each other to truth and advise or recommend each other to patience." Maytham's certainty gave him the patience to face tyranny without flinching, and his story continues to advise us to the truth of the hereafter. This is the ultimate lesson of the graveyard. It is a school that teaches us that this temporal realm is a fleeting passage. The obsession and fixation on this temporary abode at the cost of eternity is the most profound and ultimate foolishness. Let's now look at a few calls to clarify, lessons from the Garden of the Martyrs. Standing in the Gardens of the Martyrs is not a passive act. It is a profound ibadah or worship that calls us to clarify our own lives in the light of their sacrifice. So firstly, we clarify our reality, internalize the transitory nature of this world. The most direct lesson from visiting graves is the visceral reminder of our own mortality. This is not meant to be a morbid or depressing exercise, but a deeply liberating one. The late Ayatollah Sayyid Hussain Fadlallah, may God rest his pure soul, taught that visiting graves is a medicine for the disease of heedlessness or ghafla. He said, "Visiting graves is not just a social custom. It is a spiritual remedy that shatters within us the idols of dunya. It reminds us that everything we struggle for is perishable, and that the real stand is before God. Again, the references are in the write-up. We must make this a regular practice for ourselves, for our children, for our families, to detach our hearts from this temporary abode and reattach them to the permanent reality of the hereafter. Secondly, let's look at clarifying our heroes, visiting the martyrs as an act of clarification or tabyin. In an age of global propaganda, where terrorists are called freedom fighters and our martyred heroes are labeled terrorists, this simple act of visiting a martyr's grave is a powerful act of political and spiritual clarification or tabyin. It is a public declaration of who our true leaders are. It is a refusal to forget. The martyred leader of the Islamic resistance, Hezbollah, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, has repeatedly emphasized that the memory of the martyrs is a source of the resistance strength and legitimacy. He says, "The blood of our martyrs is what has made our victories, and it is what protects our existence and our future. Our responsibility is to guard this blood, to tell their stories, and to not allow anyone to distort their image." And again, the references in the write-up. Our duty is to honor the martyrs of our own time, from Palestine to Lebanon, from Iraq to Yemen to Iran, by telling their stories, and even the martyrs here in the West and in the East, supporting their families, telling their stories, and continuing their path of resistance against injustice. Please give me a loud salawat and we move to the conclusion.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So tonight, our journey through the sacred windows has shaped our hearts through the lessons of the sanctuary, the saint, and the sacrifice. We began in Mashhad, the sanctuary of mercy. There, at the threshold of Imam al-Ridha, the Guarantor or Dhamin, and the refuge for all strangers. We learned that the foundation of true strength is an all-encompassing compassion, al-Rahmah, which extends from a vulnerable deer to an entire nation. We then traveled to Qom, the garden founded upon the loyalty of the saint, Sayyedah Fatimah Masuma, peace and blessings be upon her. We witnessed how a woman's unwavering fidelity to her imam could transform a whole humble town or even village into a global fortress of knowledge, teaching us that true intercession or Shafa'ah does not negate our duty, but empowers our loyalty. Finally, we stood in the silent gardens of the martyrs, the places of ultimate sacrifice. In the presence of the martyrs, the Shuhada, we learned the pedagogy of death, that to live without fear, we must connect to those who are truly alive with their Lord, and that our fear of death must be replaced by a fear of dishonor. Together, these sanctuaries have provided a syllabus for our hearts, teaching us to be merciful, to be loyal, and to be fearless. But what is the purpose of visiting these great peaks of sanctity? Is it merely to feel their light for a moment, only to return to a profane and empty world? The school of al-Bayt teaches us that we visit the peaks so that we may learn how to sanctify our own valleys. As we continue our series on the role of place, our journey into the heart of sacred geography takes a profound turn. In our upcoming session, God willing, we will explore how sanctity is forged, not only in triumph, but also through trial, as we delve into the theme of the prison, the portal, and the presence. This leg of our journey will guide us to the hallowed ground of, and we'll be going back to Iraq and then across the entire world, takes us back to Kadhimiyya, where we will reflect on the shrine of Imam Ali ibn Musa ibn Ja'far, Imam al-Kadhib, as a symbol of divine light radiating from within a prison. We then go to Samarra, the home of the Askariyin, the two Askari imams, and the site of the major occultation, the minor and major occultations, which we will explore as a spiritual portal to the Imam of our time. May our souls be his ransom, may God hasten his return. And finally, the Imamzades, the numerous shrines of the Imam's descendants, which serve as a constant and living presence of the Ahl-Bayt's grace throughout the entire world. Join us as we uncover the powerful lessons embedded in these sacred sites. We will learn how spaces of confinement, gateways to the unseen, and markers of enduring presence shape our spiritual map and deepen our connection to the divine. Please give me a salawat and we move to the supplication, the whisper beneath the throne, which this evening is titled The Sanctuary, the Saint, and the Sacrifice.
اللهم صل على
اللهم صل
محمد
على
وآل
محمد
محمد
وعلى
عجل فرجهم.
In your name, O you whose mercy is vast, O you who is swift to please, O Lord of the Sanctuary, the Saint, and the Sacrifice. O God, our only capital is hope, and our only plea is your mercy. Pour your boundless blessings upon Prophet Muhammad, the seal of the prophets, upon Ali, the gate of knowledge, upon Fatima, the lady of light, upon Hassan, the mirror of patience, upon Hussein, the artery of justice, and upon the Imams from their progeny, the lanterns of your guidance in the deepest of night. Send your peace upon al-Ridha, the stranger whose sanctuary is a home for the heartbroken, and whose mercy gathers the soul shattered by this world. Send your peace upon Sayyedah Fatimah Masuma, the noble lady whose loyalty founded a fortress of knowledge, and whose intercession is a rope of salvation for the sincere. And send your peace upon every martyr who wrote their testimony in blood, of whom we bear witness. We are at peace with those you are at peace with, and we are at war with those you were at war with. O Lord, by the right of these sacred stations, transform our states. Soften our hearts with the mercy of the Guarantor. Strengthen our limbs in your service with a loyalty that makes us worthy of the saints' intercession, and steel our resolve with the certainty of the martyrs, so that we do not forget the cost of truth, nor fear the price of defending it. O God, how long must we endure this confusion? Where is the one prepared to cut the roots of the oppressors? We turn to you for the people of the frontiers of our time, the steadfast in Gaza, in Yemen, and in every land of siege and rubble. O Lord, as your servant Imam Zain al-Abidin pleaded, guard them with your angels, support them with your victory, and envelope them with your patience. Elevate their martyrs, heal their wounds, and grant us the courage to be their unwavering supporters in word, in deed, and in prayer. O Lord, hasten the appearance of your proof, Imam al-Mahdi, may our souls be his ransom, and may God hasten his return, our awaited dawn. In this moment, and with every dawn that follows, we renew our covenant, our contract, and our allegiance to him and to you. Grant us to be counted amongst his helpers, his defenders, and those who hasten to his command, and attain the honor of martyrdom at his command. Let us walk with him, carrying the mercy of Mashhad, the loyalty of Qom, and the courage of the martyrs, until the entire earth becomes a sanctuary for your remembrance. Amen, O Lord, sustainer of the universes. Amen, O most merciful of the merciful. Wa akhiru da'wani alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.